Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner, and I'm privileged to be joined by an old friend of Forbidden Planet TV's, the mighty John Walsh. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, Andrew. It's great to see you again. It's been nearly a year.
Nearly a year, but I know that that has been a very productive year for you because we are just about to talk about your epic, and I really mean this, epic new book, Escape from New York, the official story of the film, which Escape from New York fans, fans of good cinema and fans of great cinema books, can order from the links attached to this conversation. Now, this is one of your magnum opus, opie, I guess. Tell me how it came to be and what's inside this magnificent book.
Well, thanks, Andrew. I think it came on the back of last year's 40th anniversary for Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
And we were talking, with Tyson Books about what's coming next. And of course, the 40th anniversary this year for 1981's Escape from New York with John Carpenter. And of course, we have great ties with Studio Canal, the rights holder, and we felt, it'd be a right time to do this. And, the film has never been as popular. If we think of when it was on VHS back in the day, now it's had a 4K restoration ahead of any other film from 1981. So if you think Dragon Slayer, Clash of the Titans, The Great Muppet Caper, Raiders of the Lost Ark, these were the summer, films for that year. And yet none of them were 4K'd before John Carpenter was. That was about 2 or 3 years ago. The folks down at Studio Canal got the original camera negative and brought it to us, the consumers, again.
Yeah, wonderful. And I'm a person of a certain age who saw Escape from New York on its original week of release back at home in Liverpool, and myself and my mates at the time were just absolutely blown away by it. I was a great John Carpenter lover, great lover of Assault on Precinct 13. Some of which, Escape from New York has some of that energy. They've got similar energy, those movies, I think, while also being quite different. But one of the things I would describe Escape from New York as is hypnotic. I think it really sucks you into this alternative world right from the get-go.
Yeah, there's a dream-like state in it. If we think of some of the music and some of the pacing, as much as it's a thriller and there's a 24-hour clock ticking, if you're watching this late night, and it really is a midnight movie, isn't it? It's a Friday night, it's a Saturday night. Yeah. It's got a sort of an adult Alice in Wonderland feel about it, or a Wizard of Oz feel. In goes this soldier to rescue, of all things, the President of the United States, not a very nice man, and partly based on former President Richard Nixon. It's that the whole premise for it is dreamlike, and certainly the ethereal music that John Carpenter created with Alan Howarth gives it that feel. But the whole film is then sealed within its own future of 1997. And as we look back on that film now, we don't think it looks dated. We don't think the FX could do with being CGI'd and upscaled. And so it's kind of within its own atmosphere, much like a Harryhausen film. Ray Harryhausen films don't date. They are within their own time frame. He creates themselves. And when John Carpenter is very successful and is working on all cylinders, that's what happens. His films are hermetically sealed.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like these glorious time capsules, time and design capsules. I couldn't agree with that more. And of course, there's many great things about this movie, but one of the greatest things about it is it's brilliantly cast and featuring, I guess, what I would consider to be Kurt's keynote performance. Really, when I think of Kurt Russell, I always think of Snake Plissken first. Even though essentially he's doing an impression of Clint Eastwood, it's just but visually it's such an iconic role.
But had the past been slightly different, and had the head of Avco Embassy got his way, as we talk about in the book here with John Carpenter, it may have been Charles Bronson's role you might have been talking about, because Charles Bronson was the person the studio most fancied for that part. Yeah. Seeing him on Death Wish, they felt that he was the right person. And certainly he would have been. He would have been great. It would have been a very different energy. But wouldn't it have been strange to have imagined Charles Bronson in that role, in the lead role of Snake Plissken? Very different.
Well, I think this is so interesting about what you do and about your forensic process for digging into these official story of books, because I have to say, John, I think the great thing about your work is you truly leave no stone unturned in your process. And my great treat to myself, because I was a guy who wrote about films for 30 years. My great treat to myself last Christmas was your Flash Gordon book, which I just loved so much, also published by Titan and also available from the links attached to this conversation. But this to me is a worthy follow-up to that, and I just can't wait to dig into it. So in terms of who was in the people who were involved with the movie, who did he get to speak to, John?
Well, we've got interviews from everyone who's survived, and fascinatingly, I've got interviews and comments from people who are no longer with us. So great quotes from Ernest Borgnine, Harry Dean Stanton, Donald Pleasance. So we've really tried to encompass unpublished and unread articles and views from all of those people involved. Adrian Barbeau told me that Donald Pleasance was, and I've heard this on other productions as well, he's a terrible joker. So just before you're about to do a take, he'll do something to try and make you laugh. And he's a fidgeter as well. He's always playing with packets of boiled sweets. And if you've ever seen the 1979 film Dracula, where he's opposite Laurence Olivier and John Badham's kind of wonderful, quite romantic Dracula, I love that film. He's always playing with sweets. He's always doing something. And all of the other actors were constantly frustrated by that because he's always trying to steal the scene. So those lovely bit of sort of actor information trivia behind the scenes, it's fabulous because Pleasance plays it really serious and very right wing. And to think he was actually playing, not playing the fool, but trying to keep a light-hearted set for everyone was wonderful. Isaac Hayes would sing to people between takes.
Phenomenal.
How wonderful to have Isaac Hayes serenading you as you're sitting in the mosquito-ravaged bridge where they filmed in St. Louis, or St. Louis as they call it now. So the film really was a guerrilla shoot. People know what I mean by that. It means very sort of intense people working because they love the film. There was no day for nights here. It was shot at night. The crew was shattered and exhausted. But it's a wonderful, wonderful example of the new Hollywood that was emerging in the 70s. Non-contracted directors and performers and technicians who were there because of the love of cinema. And this has the love of cinema really all over it. And all of the tales, Dean Cundy spoke to me about the technical requirements, the special effects guys. I'm very obsessed by that. So I think more than half the book is unseen images from the FX people down at Roger Corman's New World.
Ah, wonderful, mate. Wonderful. And when you look at the film as a cohesive whole and having documented its making as you have, so comprehensively, what are your favourite sequences in the movie?
Well, for me, it's the special effects. When you know the story behind it, John Dykstra, who created the wonderful effects for Star Wars, was approached first. Now, bear in mind that the budget for Escape from New York was $6 million, 6 times the budget of The Fog, John Carpenter's previous film. But he wanted $3 million, Mr. Dykstra, to do the effects, and $1 million for himself up front, which was his going rate at the time, I guess. Yeah. They couldn't afford that. So they ended up going to Roger Corman's company, New World, who had just finished Battle Beyond the Stars with Richard Thomas, who played John Boy Walton on the TV series.
Right, I love it, with Robert Vaughn.
And George Peppard and wonderful music. Great. I'd love to do the making of book for that.
I'd love you to do it, John. I really would.
It's one of those books, if somebody doesn't, I want to read it. And if somebody won't write it, then I'll have to write it myself, So they had great experience with that picture, doing a kind of a low budget Star Wars, if you will. But of course, one of the technicians who was working on that, who then worked on Escape from New York in the matte painting department, was none other than James Cameron. So we have stories around that, James Cameron's contribution, new and unseen photos there, new and unseen photos with the matte paintings, the miniature effects. And you can see behind me here, the sort of the vector graphics background.
Yeah.
All of that was created in a much more traditional way. There was no computers involved in any of these sequences, so it was all done as traditional style animation. And in the case of the vector overview of the city, a model city was created in black with tape on the edges of the buildings, and it was rephotographed using a green process to give it that sort of vector green graphics from the 70s that we might recognize. So all of those tricks are revealed, you see right behind the magician's curtain in the book, and the deleted scenes, what could have been, what happened with the music. We spoke, of course, to Alan Howarth, all the variations on the poster design. There was controversy around this particular image and so on. So all of that is in there, unseen versions of those. So really, for people who think they know the film and the making of, revisit, because I will guarantee there is something in there that you didn't know, because there was lots I didn't. And I'm a pretty big fan of the film.
Wow, amazing. I mean, no finer endorsement than that. And again, I think you're at the absolute top of the tree in terms of people who assemble these kind of books. And I know how detailed your process is, but you approach it with love and enthusiasm and forensic interest, all of which really speaks to me as a movie fan. And there are lots of Escape from New York fans out there, quite rightly. And I think this is just a massive Christmas treat for them, mate.
Well, I hope so, because there's been lots of talk of a remake. And of course, there was the sequel, Escape from LA.
Of course.
People return to this. And in a sense, when we look at it just from a business point of view, it was the last successful film John Carpenter had. Of course, people say to me, well, hang on a minute, what about The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China? They're great films. They're marvelous films and deserve books and so on. But financially and critically, they failed at their point of release. Yeah. And so this was the last film that was a bona fide hit, both with critics and with the box office. And that was 1981. So tough old business.
Yeah, it is a tough business. I think you're making a very interesting point because, of course, now The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China are beloved and feted and celebrated and are seen as part of this very rich relationship that Carpenter had with Kurt Russell. I also think you've touched upon something very interesting, which is I can't think of anybody who has starred in a 15 years later sequel who looks as little changed as Kurt Russell does between Escape from New York and Escape from LA. It's just amazing how he looks, how he doesn't appear to have aged in between those 2 points.
Yeah, Snake Plissken's to have a sort of a piece of pan quality about him. And I understand there's going to be a 4K of Escape from LA coming out in the new year as well. So that's certainly something to celebrate. It's a wonderful point in cinema because had Avco Embassy not made this film, it wouldn't have happened. None of the major studios would have done something like this with a fairly decent budget. $6 million was not too shabby, but Avco Embassy was taking risks. They were making films with John Carpenter. They allowed him to they wanted him originally on the Philadelphia Experiment. They said, come and direct this. And he would have been a great fit for that movie.
Of course,
and he said, I've got this in the back of my car. I wrote it around the time of Watergate. It's about corrupt presidents and what we might do in a society where the penitentiaries are getting massively overcrowded. And the year this film was released, America had its highest number of men incarcerated in prison. So there really is a conversation to be had about, political corruption at the very top. And what do we do with people when we send them away? Are we rehabilitating them or are we kind of serving up a problem for us later on? So I think partly because the film has a message, it survived. And we think about Donald Pleasance now, perhaps, and we think, not that bad. Not that bad. We might vote for him.
No. He seems mild by comparison, with the other people who are leading the global catastrophe, as it were. Yeah, no, he does indeed seem mild and reasonable, I think, compared to what followed. I think those are such well-observed points, John. And again, it's a beautiful package and you've done your usual fantastic job. Thanks so much for sharing with me and with the Forbidden Planet TV viewers. And Escape from New York, the official story of the film, is available from the links attached to this conversation. And John, I can't wait to see your next book.
I can't wait too. I'm not allowed to say, but I'm hoping to bring a lot of excitement when people find out what's coming next.
Well, I know what your next book is, of course, and people are going to fucking flip out. But it's a worthy successor to what you've done for Flash Gordon and what you've done for Escape from New York, both of which, Escape from New York and Flash Gordon, available here. And John, you have a very Merry Christmas, a very happy holiday, mate, filled with dystopian tales of New York reimagined as a prison.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Great to catch up with you.
Yeah, always great to see you, brother. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.